My name is Theodore, and here's one truth I've come to accept. Some betrayals can't be forgiven. Not everything is repairable with a heartfelt conversation. Not all wounds heal with time or can be swept beneath the rug like dust we don't want to face. The day my daughter stood in front of me, defending her mother's betrayal, I reached into my pocket, pulled out a folded piece of paper, and handed it to her. "You have 30 minutes," I said, my voice steady. "Pack your things. You're no longer staying in this house. Actions have consequences." Let me take you back to where it all began, 19 years ago. I first met Ruby in our second year of college. I was instantly taken by her presence. Her beauty was undeniable, and something about the way she carried herself pulled me in. We were in different departments, but our paths crossed often, around the library, the cafeteria, hallways. At first, it was nothing more than polite small talk. But soon, those brief exchanges turned into longer conversations, and eventually into something more. From the moment I truly got to know her, I fell hard. Life back then felt weightless. No bills piling up, no real responsibilities. Just hope and the idea of a future we could build side by side. I remember thinking how lucky I was to have found someone like her. Then came graduation. We had just stepped out into the real world, wide-eyed and unsure, when Ruby discovered she was pregnant. It hit me like a punch. Not because I didn't want to be a father. I did, but because I wasn't ready. I had no stable job, no savings, just a degree and a head full of dreams. But I told myself, this is what it means to be a man. You step up, even when fear is clawing at your insides. We talked things through and decided to get married. It wasn't extravagant. Just a simple, quiet ceremony with a few close friends and some family. A few months later, our daughter, Maria, came into the world. I stopped being just a young man trying to find his way. I became a father. Ruby and I didn't have much, but we had love, and a tiny girl who looked at us like we were her whole universe. That was the beginning of our family. 2 kids fresh out of college, trying to build something meaningful in a world that gave out no shortcuts. Truth be told, I was terrified. Most of my friends were still finding themselves, or relying on their parents. Me? I was up before sunrise every day, taking any work I could to put food on our table. Whatever the job, I took it. I pushed through the exhaustion. I was determined to make it work, even if I had to carry all the weight on my own. I believed in building a home, even if it was slow, even if it hurt. As Maria grew, my love for her only deepened. I wanted to give her everything I never had, even if it meant I had nothing left for myself. Being her father never felt like a burden, not for a single moment. It grounded me. It gave my life purpose. By the time she started school, Ruby decided it was time to return to work. I supported her decision wholeheartedly. We had been living off my income for years, and while we managed, it was far from easy. Her paycheck brought relief. We had a rhythm. I'd wake early, help get Maria ready for school, then head to work. Ruby would pick her up later, and we'd all gather for dinner in the evenings. It was simple, but it was ours. But time doesn't slow down. Before I knew it, Maria wasn't that little girl running barefoot in the yard. She was talking about majors and universities. The years blurred. Our baby was now a young woman, preparing to leave the nest. And as she grew, I started noticing something else, something I couldn't quite name at first. When you've lived with someone for nearly 2 decades, you learn to recognize even the tiniest shifts, the silences, the half-hearted smiles, the change in their eyes. That's how it began with Ruby. Life had picked up speed. Maria was nearing 19, almost done with high school, and prepping for college dominated most of our conversations. I chalked up Ruby's distance to stress. Then one evening, I brought up an idea, a small family getaway. Just the 3 of us, something to bond before Maria left home. Ruby was lounging on the couch, her eyes glued to her phone like usual. I suggested the trip. She didn't even glance at me, just muttered, "We'll see," eyes still locked on her screen. That moment hurt more than I expected. Unless you've been dismissed like that by someone you love, it's hard to describe the ache. After that, I started paying more attention. Ruby always had her phone, always. But she kept the screen angled away from me, subtle but intentional. At dinner, She was there physically, but her mind was miles away. I tried not to let paranoia take over, but when trust starts to crack, even silence feels loud. Then, life gave me an answer I wasn't even searching for. One afternoon, Ruby was having trouble logging into an old email account. She asked for help, and I agreed, nothing out of the ordinary. Years ago, she'd set that account up using my email as a recovery address. So, when the password reset arrived in my inbox, I clicked it, updated her login, and passed it over. But as I was about to close the tab, something made me pause. I opened her iMessage account. Most of the chats were harmless. Familiar names, everyday conversations. I was about to exit, let it go, when one unfamiliar name caught my eye. I tapped on it, and just like that, my world tilted. It wasn't a one-off chat. It was a long thread, a living, breathing conversation between Ruby and a man I'd never even heard her mention. As I read through their messages, my heart sank. These weren't friendly exchanges. There was warmth, familiarity, emotion. There were selfies, old ones, pictures I'd never seen, some of them together. I kept reading, trying to understand, trying to piece together a timeline. The more I scrolled, the more it unraveled. This had been going on for a while. Quiet messages exchanged late at night. Words like it was always supposed to be us. And her replies, she didn't shut him down. Not even close. Then I found the message that made my hands tremble. He referenced the time they reconnected, during a brief break in her relationship with me. The same break Ruby once explained as a weekend at her cousin's, to clear her head. That was right before she came back and told me she was pregnant. Back then, I believed her. Of course I did. Why wouldn't I? She returned, said she wanted to work things out. We got married soon after. I thought we were doing the right thing, for us, for our baby. 19 years later, I'm left wondering, was the entire foundation of our life a lie? I didn't document every message. I just couldn't. There was too much to take in, and truthfully, I was barely keeping myself upright. Still, I managed to capture a few of the conversations. A part of me knew I might need evidence later, though at the time, I didn't know what for. After closing the app, I sat in silence for hours. My heart felt like it had been shattered in slow motion. My mind was spinning with questions, but one thought clawed it way above the rest, one I never imagined I'd even consider. What if Maria wasn't my daughter? The very idea made me feel nauseous. But once the thought was there, it refused to go away. It gripped me so tightly that I couldn't bring myself to confront Ruby. Not yet. I needed more than suspicion. I needed the truth. So over the next few days, I quietly put together a plan. I didn't say a word to anyone. I moved carefully, discreetly. I collected the samples I needed, made the arrangements, and sent everything off for testing. And then, I waited. That week was the longest of my life. When the results finally arrived, the envelope felt heavier than it should have. I walked straight to my bedroom and sat on the edge of the bed, just staring at it. Then I opened it, and there it was. Cold, clinical, undeniable. Maria was not my biological daughter. There's no guidebook for what to do when your entire reality collapses in one sentence. I sat there, hollow. For nearly 20 years, I had believed in something that wasn't real. And then something inside me snapped. I couldn't go on pretending. I couldn't look at Ruby and smile like the foundation of our life hadn't just crumbled beneath me. I waited until Maria wasn't home. I needed to speak to Ruby alone, without interruptions. I found her in the living room. She was sitting on the couch, like nothing was wrong. I stood there for a moment, then asked, "How long have you been talking to him?" She looked up, confused at first, then folded her arms offensively. "Who?" "You know exactly who I mean," I said, my voice low but firm. "Don't play dumb." Her posture stiffened. "It's not what you think. We've only kept in touch. I haven't done anything with him." I stared at her, searching for even a flicker of remorse. "You think that's okay? Staying in touch with someone you clearly still have feelings for? You think that's not a betrayal?" She looked away, silent. "You built this entire life on a lie," I continued, my voice shaking with restraint. "You never once told me Maria might not be mine." Instead of answering, She fired back with, "Why were you even looking through my phone?" And that was the moment everything became crystal clear. She wasn't sorry. Not for the lie, not for the betrayal, not for the years I spent in the dark. She wasn't even trying to explain. She was trying to blame me, as if I had no right to question the truth of my own life. Then the front door opened. Maria stepped inside, her backpack slung over one shoulder, earbuds in. She paused when she saw us. Something in the air must have told her something was wrong. "What's going on?" she asked, tugging one earbud out, looking between us. Before Ruby could twist the story, I raised a hand to stop her. "I found out your mother's been in contact with someone from her past," I said calmly. "Someone she never told me about." Maria's brows drew together. "Okay, but talking to someone isn't the same as cheating. You're acting like she did something unforgivable." I didn't argue. I didn't try to explain it further. Instead, I reached into my pocket and pulled out the folded paper. Quietly, I handed it to her. "Just read this." She looked puzzled but took it. As her eyes scanned the page, her expression shifted. She read it once, then again. Her lips moved silently as she tried to make sense of what it said. And then she froze. I spoke softly, but firmly. "You have 30 minutes. Pack your things. You're not staying in this house anymore." Ruby opened her mouth to speak, but no words came. Just silence. Maria sat on the edge of the couch, the paper trembling in her hands. Her world was collapsing too now, but it was never supposed to come to this. I turned to Ruby one last time. My chest burned with everything I wanted to scream, but I held it back. "You let me raise another man's child for 19 years, I said. "I won't ever forgive you for that." And with that, I walked away. There was nothing left to say. Now you know everything. The truth is ugly. The pain is sharp. I was deceived for nearly 2 decades, raising a child who wasn't even mine. It's hard to put into words what something like this does to a man. The part that eats at me the most? I still don't know if Ruby ever told herself the truth. Did she look at that child, our daughter, and smile at me every day knowing full well what she was hiding? Or did she convince herself that the truth didn't matter because I loved Maria like my own? Because I was doing a good job being her father anyway? I'll probably never get that answer. And that not knowing hurts in a way I can't fully explain. Because even if she didn't set out to deceive me from day one, she still made a choice. She decided I didn't deserve to know. She stole my right to shape my own life based on reality. Being a father isn't just about DNA. I've lived that truth. I showed up every day, through thick and thin, for a child I thought was mine. But when that foundation is built on a secret, on betrayal so deeply buried it spans almost 2 decades, it becomes a kind of wound you carry in silence. But pain has a way of teaching you things. And there are a few hard lessons I've learned, lessons I hope might reach someone who's listening. Especially the men who think this could never happen to me. Because once upon a time, I thought that too. First, never ignore what your gut is telling you. If something feels off in your relationship, it probably is. Emotional distance doesn't just happen overnight. It starts somewhere, and more often than not, it begins with dishonesty. Don't brush off the subtle shifts. When your partner stops meeting your gaze, when conversations feel hollow, when their phone suddenly becomes more important than the person sitting beside them, that's not love fading. That's truth slipping away. Second, don't believe that sacrifice guarantees loyalty. You can give someone everything, your love, your time, your devotion, and they can still betray you. Loving deeply doesn't make you immune to being hurt. Loyalty isn't always tied to how much you give. Some people take everything and still wonder. That's a brutal fact, but one worth facing. And third, the truth is a way of surfacing. You can bury it for years, but it won't stay hidden forever. Mine took 19 years to catch up with me. And when it did, it wrecked everything I thought was real. But it also gave me clarity. If you're out there clinging to something that doesn't feel right, if you're afraid that searching for the truth might blow your life apart, hear me when I say this. Silence is more destructive than any truth could ever be. Lies eat away at everything. Trust, love, security, until there's nothing left. But truth, even when it's devastating, draws a line. It says, this is where the pain ends and the healing begins. To those who've listened this far, thank you. This hasn't been easy to share. But if my story spares even one person from going through what I've endured, maybe there's a purpose in all this pain. If this resonated with you, please share it. Someone out there might need to hear it more than you know. As for me, I'm still in the middle of it. The divorce from Ruby is turning into a battlefield. Every conversation feels like a skirmish. Every legal step is a war of its own. But I'm standing my ground, and I'm not backing down.